Hey, don't forget the Johnsons are coming over. I want to find a rosé Jill hasn't tried yet.
Let's go exploring at Total Wine. Their prices are ridiculously low.
Wondrous selection, helpful guides, always low prices. Total Wine and more.
Hey, Mr. Bigfoot, what you eating?
My famous 3-bean tacos. Would you like one?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, just let me splash some El Yucateco Caribbean hot sauce on it. And here you go.
Yum, this sauce is so tasty. It has the perfect balance of heat and flavor.
Yeah, El Yucateco is all about flavor, kid. They have 5 habanero-based sauces, guaranteed to make your taste buds happy. Red, green, Caribbean, Black Label Reserve, and triple extra hot. Oh yeah.
Where can I get some?
Just go to shopelucateco.com and use code Paranormal Punchers to save 10%.
Thanks, Mr. Bigfoot.
Paranormal Punchers is part of the Podbelly Network. Go to podbelly.com for more great podcasts.
Hey y'all, this is Frank the Bigfoot, and you're listening to the Paranormal Puncher.
Hey friends, welcome to a bonus episode of Paranormal Punchers. I'm Mark.
I'm Alicia.
I'm Nash.
And we are joined today by our special guest, David Race. He's a comedian, he's a TV and podcast host, and most importantly, he's had a Bigfoot experience that I can't wait to talk about. David, welcome to the show.
Yes. How you doing?
I'm doing well. You, sir?
Doing very well. Doing very well. Nice sunny Los Angeles day here.
Yeah, a little different here in Pennsylvania, but
not quite sunny.
Now,
yeah, well, I remember that. I remember that too. I grew up in New York and spent some time in Philadelphia as a disc jockey, so I remember the occasional thing called sun.
Right. Yeah, you know, that's interesting that you were a DJ in Philadelphia, not too far from where we are, but you also worked for the Howard Stern Show, correct?
Yes, I did. Before I had set off my own as a disc jockey, that's where I was an intern in the late '80s for a year, and it was back when the Stern Show was smaller physically. It wasn't a small show. We were the number one show in New York and Philly at the time, but we were a physically smaller show. It wasn't like today. He's got like 10,000 staff. He's got staff that never meets him. But in those days, it was just me, Gary, Jackie, Fred, and Robin and Howard, and I shared a desk with Howard. It was very intimate.
That had to be a crazy experience. Was there anything, we'll keep it in the paranormal genre a little bit. Did you ever get involved in conversations with Howard or Robin or anybody on the paranormal tip, or is that just nothing they were interested in?
No, that definitely is not something they're interested in, and Howard's very skeptical about that stuff. But
of course,
but that's even before my deeper interest in it.
Okay.
So we're talking about late '80s here, and the extent of my interest in those subjects at that time was Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of.
Oh, same here, man.
Oh, the best. Which was a great show, no argument. But that was as far as I went in terms of like how much I knew about it. So I hadn't had my own incidents. I didn't have much to say myself on the subject. So it's not like I was holding out some subject on them because they didn't want to talk about it.
Now, well, then what year did you have an experience that got you into the paranormal?
So we're definitely talking now about the Bigfoot thing, which is, let's see, that would be 2007, fall of 2007. I had a pretty good incident. Matt Moneymaker and I know each other pretty well at this point. And, I've gotten to understand his system at BFRO for classifying Bigfoot sightings. Category A is basically you met one. And category B is, you saw one down there, and category C is you almost saw one. There's sort of like these categories they've got in their system there. And my incident is not an A. I didn't carpool with a Bigfoot to the place. But it's not it's not really minor either. It's not like, I heard there was one down there one time 10 years ago. My friend Jerry saw something. It's not remote and distant from me. It's me. And I'll tell you the story, but you'll see that all that separates me and this Bigfoot is a wall.
Oh, wow.
I was going to say, if I remember hearing from your podcast, it wasn't an A or a B. It was kind of like a B plus.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. I mean, the shortest version I could tell you. How long do we have here? Several hours? What do we got?
Yeah, man, as long as you need.
The shortest version I can tell you is I was on the East Coast. I believe this is October of 2007, if I'm right. Late September, early October is about what I'm thinking it was. And my family, we were all from, I'm from New York. I grew up on Long Island. My father at the time, and through all my childhood, he owned a house upstate New York. I don't know how familiar you guys are with that neck of the woods, but it's quite rural upstate New York. I mean, this was like a half hour from Saratoga, about 45 minutes from Albany.
Pretty well forested and wooded.
Yeah. This is country we're talking. I mean, this is near, in Bigfoot speak, this will really help Bigfoot aficionados around the country zero in on this thing. It was very close. I'm talking 40 minutes from Whitehall.
Oh, nice.
Right
You're
on.
going up there in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So really up in that area. That would be one of the major towns not far away at all. I mean, like perhaps if you wanted Dunkin' Donuts, you might have to go to Whitehall, that kind of thing. So he owned a property up there. It was on a 55-acre. He doesn't own it anymore, unfortunately. I wish he did. I'd go back there and film something. It was on a 55-acre plot of land, and it was a house just up at the top of this plateau of a mountain. On the 55 acres, the house was up top, and then sort of smack in the middle of that, in the forest up on the plateau of the mountain. Probably, almost a couple thousand feet elevation, I would guess. I don't know how big mountain you get thrown off in California. Mountains are so high here. So I'm going to say 1,000 feet elevation. High for New York, not high for California. In California, that's freeway hill.
Right.
But in California, I can go away for the weekend here from LA, and literally in an hour from now, I could be at 8,000 feet.
Wow.
So you don't have that, Becky, but so this was not that high. Your breathing's not affected. But he had a log house, like a very nice log cabin type of home up there. And my wife and I were up there with him and his wife, and the gist of it is that about 10 o'clock one night, we were there probably about 3 nights, about 10 o'clock one night, my wife is standing on the like the porch that overlooks, parts of the land, and she's, probably, I think she was looking through a telescope at the stars and stuff because it's so crystal clear up there. And I'm just kind of watching her from the living room. I'm maybe reading a book or something and watching her from the living room. And I could see that she's just sort of acting a little skittish, and she's not really like that. I could see she's sort of like looking through the telescope and then pulling her head away and kind of looking left and looking right. Like, what was that? Like that sort of, like she heard something kind of reactions. And the window's shut, but I'm just kind of watching this silent movie go on through the window, And I'm thinking, that's strange. She's acting a little weird. And then she goes back to looking through the telescope and then kind of jerks her head up again, looking around. It's all looking kind of strange for her behavior. So finally, I slide up the window, or she comes back in and tells me something weird. I just feel like I'm being watched or something. Which now, again, this predates my deeper Bigfoot knowledge. So I don't immediately tune into things like that like I would today. If that were today, and I was there with your wife, that's
What? Hold on here.
I slipped a joke right in there.
That was nice. I like that. That was good. Slid it right.
That's what us professional comedians can do. That we
That's
can
right.
fuck them right.
You must be a professional. That's pretty good.
You got to watch carefully. So, if that were today and I was standing there and someone came in and said something like that to me, like I feel like I'm being watched, that would ring up in my Bigfoot head. And it's, wait a minute, that's Bigfoot stuff. Like something's watching you. You know, I understand the things that can mean. But in 2007, predating my deeper understanding of that phenomena, I knew what Bigfoot is, obviously, and I had an interest in the topic, but I didn't have a real understanding of things to the point where that kind of language would mean anything to me. So I just kind of thought, well, that's weird. I'll come in now. You know, it's spooky out there. That's just my general point of view, probably at that point. So she comes in, shuts the door. So that's 10, 11 o'clock at night. Okay. Now fast forward to hours later, we're sound asleep in the guest room. Now we're talking 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever, real late. And remember, this house on this mountain is deep in the woods, you know, way up a private road, a fenced off, locked up private road. We don't have neighbors on this property. Okay. The neighbors are, you know, pine trees and that's it. You know, my father had a lot of syrup tapping going on. Like it was that kind of property where they would tap for syrup. Mm-hmm. And so this was not, you know, no one else could be up there. I don't want you even for a second, not one person listening to the sound of my voice in your audience right now should be thinking, wait a minute, that was probably just that guy in the flannel shirt. No, it wasn't. Okay. At 3 o'clock in the morning, in the dark of the night, in the dark of the woods, crickets is all you hear. Something pounded on the wall next to our heads in that bedroom at about a 10, 11 foot height. I'm talking pounded on the wall like a freight train, just like Amtrak just ran a line through the woods that crashed into the wall of this house.
Wow.
Holy moly. That was a little startling at 3 o'clock in the morning, I imagine.
Yeah. Okay. And again, you know, pretend that were today. My reaction to that would be different. I understand the context. I understand where I was. I'd know things like the Whitehall incident, and I would immediately think, "Oh my God, I know what that is." You know, but in 2007, not nearly as aware of that stuff. Didn't even know what the Whitehall incident was. Definitely didn't understand things like Bigfoot's pound on the wall. That's a common occurrence. None of those things would be things I'd know. So from the startled, you know, awake state that you're suddenly in when something pounds on the wall at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was like boom, boom, that kind of thing. When you suddenly wake up from that, for whatever reason, and someone listening to this is going to think, how did he not do this? But you have to think about being totally naive to the topic of Bigfoot. Suspend your knowledge of Bigfoot and understand that you're not thinking like that at all. You're just a guy who just got woken up suddenly from the deepest levels of sleep. I jumped up in the bed, and so did my wife. And, you know, in that absolute, sleepwalking almost type of state, we looked at each other and went, what the hell? And just laid our heads back down. Okay. And that's it. Didn't get up, didn't peek out the window, didn't spring into action. That's all stuff I would have done today, not then. Okay. So we put our heads back down. Now, fast forward to the next morning. And I think I walked outside and kind of just looked around, like below the window there, where it would be, like just got a sense of how high is this window? You know, because the pounding was right like next to the window where our heads were. And I'm looking, I'm like, that's like 11 feet up. And then I'm looking down at the ground and thinking, like, do I see like any deer prints? Like the deer would have been the kind of thing I'd have been thinking, I suppose.
Well, I mean, if a deer's pounding that high up on your wall, that's just as scary as a Bigfoot.
Like I said, it makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. You know, take out the 11-foot thing. Pretend that was the pounding was just like, you know, a shuddering pounding that actually happened at 4 feet, and just it was so hard that it, you know, in my head it was at the height that I'm talking about. Let's just pretend it really was at 4 feet. Okay, so now let's make it a deer. Well, any deer that hit the wall that hard, A, is mentally insane, and B, is laying there unconscious, 4 legs up right now.
Right.
Okay, it's just not possible that that's what that was. You know, but those are rational ways of looking at this, which, you know, I wasn't knowledgeable on Bigfoot, so I'm just kind of looking at the wall and the floor and thinking, I don't see any deer prints. I'm looking for things you shouldn't even be looking for. You know. And, and I guess like here's one that's realistic. Someone could say this, I suppose, did you look for a meteorite? That's not a bad guess. Okay.
Yeah.
What would knock that down is boom, boom, not boom. Meteorites don't hit the wall, bounce back, and hit twice.
Unless it was two of them.
Yeah, that's the meteor. That's what shoots that meteorite. The other thing is, I would think a meteorite that hit the wall that hard would have made some kind of damage, chipped away the wood. This is a log cabin, a well-built log cabin, but I mean, I should have seen splintered wood. A meteorite, also, not to mention that. I mean, none of those things were there either. There was nothing unusual about the ground at all. There was no disturbed leaf beds, nothing unusual. So I just kind of wrote that off. My cursory examination of the ground didn't produce anything. I didn't think much of it really. And then I probably said to my father at lunch or something, "Hey, did you hear anything weird last night?" Just thinking more about it. And he went, "No." Now he's on the other side of the house, so it's not unusual that he didn't hear it. They were literally they're the exact opposite. Other end of the hallway, other side, literally facing the other side. I was facing the tree line close by, and they're facing sort of the wider plot of land, more near where my wife was looking up at the, from the porch telescope thing. They're facing that area. And I would think I have to really be staring at the house right now to know this, but I would think that their house, their window, was higher. Actually, was not even reachable. So anyway, he dismissed it, and then I just didn't think anything of that. But I remembered later on, and I'll get back to this. I remembered some weird things my father had told me about the property over the years that I never connected to Bigfoot until I, started getting more and more suspicious of this incident. And the way I got more suspicious of this incident was somewhere around that time, I feel like is when I probably started getting into Finding Bigfoot, the TV show. And I started seeing things in my incident that seemed like that one, like that show, like things of that show, I should say.
Right.
It started to draw parallels and there are similarities between the two.
Right. And I started seeing incidents that seemed like my thing. They even do a Whitehall episode. I probably saw the Whitehall episode and then looked at a map and went, my God, that's unbelievably close to where I was. Like a lot of stuff started ringing up, and that's when I remembered that my father over the years had told me weird stories about the property, like that he had found deer on the property with like a broken leg, dead, and like the neck snapped, and he just found it strange.
Yikes. He
didn't know what the hell, and he didn't. He had no context for that. He didn't know anything about Bigfoot. And he just his reaction to that was just, some bear. We know some bears on the property. I just remember him telling me stuff like that. And me at the time thinking that's weird, but I didn't know anything about Bigfoot. I didn't think Bigfoot stuff. I just thought that's weird. I thought about bears like he was thinking about, I remember he used to chain his dog up in like a dog run. On the property, and he would sort of they'd go out for the day, maybe a couple hours doing errands and different things, and this dog would be chained up in the dog run. And I remember that dog was very neurotic and had hair loss problems from its nervousness, and that dog started off as a puppy seeming pretty normal to me, and it just, I don't know, it just seemed like something traumatized it over time. And I remember when we would leave it chained up and we'd go out for the day, at other times I'd visited up there, I remember the dog didn't seem happy with that situation. Like something weird happens to I'm at this point, once I'm putting two and two together, I'm realizing all these things.
Right. You're reviewing and looking back going, that dog might have known something or seen or sensed another presence or something like that.
Yeah, or one was staring right at it opposite this fence. This dog has been visited by 9-foot things looking at it and has been terrified by them, and it can't tell me about this. So it just two and two came together. At some point here, I decided to report this to the BFRO. This is before I had my own podcast, I believe. Yep, it has to be, because the incident's 2007. I probably reported it within a year of that. Yeah, and I did my first podcast was comedians talking about Bigfoot, which was 2015. So 2014 to 2015. So yeah, I hadn't ever done a podcast yet. So this is, before I enter the world of Bigfoot podcasting, I report this to the BFRO like when I'm maybe like a, relatively new watcher of Finding Bigfoot, and I'm putting things together on this. And I write up a report, and then they have like one of their investigators call me. The guy for like upstate New York calls me. And I was amazed that he did like a really comprehensive phone call. It was like a long phone call. My recollections were on the phone like an hour and a half.
Wow.
And I remember thinking during the call, like, these guys don't mess around. Like this is like, they really want to know answers. Like they're not, it wasn't cursory at all, And then I get an email from the guy, I don't know, next day or something. Hey, can we talk again? I have some more questions. I'm like, this guy's doing a follow-up. He's got more to discuss, Right. And I took the next call, and in the next call, he said to me, let me ask you something. He goes, was the window open? The next to your head, next to the bed, was the window open? I said, it was raised a couple inches, with a screen, a screen, like it was screened in, but open to the screen a few inches because a nice cool breeze came in upstate, And he says, let me ask you something. He goes, I hate to, be asking something so personal. He goes, but do you recall if your wife was menstruating?
Oh, okay.
And at that point, I hung up and called the police. No. At that point, I actually said, I said, I don't recall. I said, but hold on a second. And because girls know all that stuff. Can you imagine if guys were the ones who menstruated? None of us would have a record of this. I mean, there's no chance that I'd have some calendar, like, there's a circle on the 15th, but I bet she does.
Yeah, we can calculate it out. So
yeah. So we keep track of these things. So I went down the hall and I said to her, listen, I know this is crazy, but I'm on the phone with that Bigfoot guy again. I said, and he wants to know if you had your period that day when this Bigfoot thing happened. And she was like, what? And, we got divorced. That was my first wife. And she was like, what? And then she looked at her records or whatever, and yes, she was. And I called the guy back, and I said, yeah, actually, strangely, she was. And he goes, yeah, I think you had a male Bigfoot at your window.
He was like in heat or something.
What?
I was thinking in the back of my head in the story, like, I wonder if he was stalking your wife.
Oh my God.
And I told her that, and her hair is still standing. And no, I told her that, and she was, disgusted and shocked. But like all women, probably somewhere in the back of her mind turned on a little bit.
Are you, honey?
That was Alicia going, oh,
no.
And I reported it to the guy, and he chalked it up as like, the last of his questions, paired together with his earlier call yesterday. And he said, I'm reporting this as whatever the hell category he gave it. I don't recall, again, their categories, but like you called it a B plus, I think they actually might've called it a B, but let's just go with something in the B's.
Yeah.
And that meant like, I didn't eye to eye. Like had I jumped up out of that bed, okay, and then I, peeked open the Venetian blinds like someone might have done really in that incident, I would say there's a 95% chance I'd have been face to face, inches from a male Bigfoot.
God.
And you would have been so frightened, all of the hair would have fallen right out of your head.
Yeah. I would, as I've said on my own show, I would still be unconscious in that room right now.
Yeah, exactly. You look back in your journal and there'd be a circle for the day.
Yeah.
Yep, I pooped my pants on that day.
Yeah. There would not be enough smelling salts to have gotten me out of that.
Wow.
But people have asked me, do you wish you had done that? Because the Bigfoot types, like the moneymaker types, like to them, it's like, oh my God, what a blown opportunity, you idiot! My point of view is, oh, someone was watching over me. Like, thank God I didn't flick those blinds open. Like the last thing in the world I want to do is meet a Bigfoot. And moneymaker, like to him, it was like that was the culmination of his life's work. That opportunity I missed.
But at 3:00 in the morning in your jams, bleary-eyed, looking out the window, that is the worst time to have a face-to-face.
I want you to think about this a second. I want your audience and you guys are really to take this in here. We're not talking looking out the window. We're talking face-to-face, height, exactly. Talking about he's 10 feet tall, 9 feet tall, 8 feet tall, whatever. I'm at a window that's 10, 11 feet high. I open the blinds and maybe there's a couple inches separation with me looking down at the top of his head. We're talking about 3 inches. I'm talking about he's fogging up the glass I'm looking at.
While he's checking out your wife, he's fogging up the glass. That's what you're telling me?
Right. Yeah. He might have been masturbating. We don't know what was happening.
We don't know what was happening out there.
Okay.
It's probably for the best.
Right. So this is really the most terrifying kind of incident had it gone there. Had I actually jumped out of the bed and opened the window, we're talking about I'd be one of the most famous Bigfoot witnesses in world history right now.
Right.
Okay. There would be history books that are like, Patterson, Gimlin, Race, I'd be really an important man.
Unless the Bigfoot yanked you out the window and drug you down in the woods.
Right.
Yeah, but luckily for me, I did not do that. So that's my Bigfoot incident. I actually have another one that I don't talk about much. I might have mentioned on my podcast once, but it's not nearly as detailed. I don't talk about it so much, but and it's not, it's just much more abstract and distant. You want it, or I'll skip it?
Well, now I'm intrigued.
Yeah. You can't lead us into it. I mean, come on.
This one is just after that. I'm going to guess 2011, 12. Sometime after that. I'm deep into the subject by this time. By this time, like I swear to God, I'm one of these weird guys that goes on vacations to Cancun with a stack of Bigfoot books. Like if you saw me laying at an all-inclusive resort in Riviera Maya, the guy next to me is reading, some John Clancy novel, and the woman next to me is reading some romance novel, and I'm open to like Patterson, Gimlin. How did it happen? It's the strangest beach reading you ever saw. And I went on a weekend away kind of trip with my wife to Yosemite. We drove up there, and we were staying like a bed and breakfast up there. And when you're at Yosemite for only a day or two, I don't know, it seemed wise to me to just to see as much of Yosemite as I could see in a short, where I really only had one full day on the property, So in the park. So we booked this tour van that it was us and a half dozen other couples from around the country, and you paid whatever the hell you paid, some flat rate, and they just drove you around for 6 hours and with a private guide and took you to all the most important falls and cliffs and told you what this thing is and that thing is. It was a kind of interesting way to see a lot in 6 hours. And not only did I spend the entire day on that tour ride asking this guy endless Bigfoot questions. Okay, it was so nuts. The other people on the ride were from Houston, and they're all over the country. You hear the accents, from all over the country, and I could tell they were thinking, "Who is this moron?" I mean, because I'm sitting there, literally the whole day is some couple from Louisiana going, boy, there's really interesting trees over there. How old are those big, tall, Sierra trees here? And the tour guide's going, well, some of those trees are over 200 years old. In fact, the oldest one ever in California is thought to be 425 years old. People, wow. And I'm going, and I like, anybody else have any questions? And I'm like, yeah, listen, in this particular part of the park, I mean, it seems like a lot of tree line, a narrow road. I imagine you're in the park all the time driving on this road, probably at all different hours. You have any Bigfoot sightings over here?
How many sightings have you had?
Yeah, and I've got some Missouri couple looking at each other like, who is this idiot? And it's going on all day like that. But eventually, at some point, and I don't know Yosemite enough. Like, I don't know the terminology, so it's very, very hard for me to say to you. I was looking at, Pikes Peak when this happened. Like, I don't remember the names of the things there. Okay. But there was some point where they took us to some overlook that you stood there and you looked across like a canyon, and across the way you were looking at, flat rock plateaus. Very, very bare, flat rock plateaus with some tree line relatively near them, but they were kind of open rock face, flat plateaus at tremendous height, across like a canyon from you. And maybe there was some kind of waterfalls that comes down from there. That might have been why they had us looking at it. I just don't remember that stuff. Okay. But what I do remember was that in broad daylight, looking across the way, whatever the distance is, I'm not good at distance, but I'm going to guess that was I don't know, half a mile away. I'm pretty far away. Okay. Looking across the way, I'm positive I was seeing figures moving around on the flat rock face, kind of changing places. One went to the right of that one. This one moved to the left of that one. And they were hard to make out what they were with the naked eye. They were at a pretty good distance. It was sunny and broad daylight but it just nothing really makes sense. Like I shouldn't be able to see with the naked eye. Let's say that was a 3 foot tall kid up there. First of all, how did he get there? But second of all, let's say it was a 3 foot tall kid who somehow got carried in a backpack and hiked up there with some, super fit parents.
Right.
I mean, I don't know that I could see a 3 foot kid with my naked eye at that distance, with the sun glinting off the rocks, him moving, across or by his 4 foot tall brother. I don't think I could make that out like that. These were probably taller objects than that and bigger than that. And it just seemed like something was changing places, 2 or 3 objects and things moving, changing places. And it's suspicious to me as to what I was seeing at that height. I'm not even sure humans can so easily get up to that space.
So what you're telling me is that, it couldn't have been people, but definitely maybe an entire family of Bigfoot who are watching the people going by. They were the tourists watching you guys going by. Maybe catching a little sunbathing out there, tanning up, enjoying the time, enjoying the park.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't remember if I said much about it to anyone. I know this, it seems, there's some skeptic listening to your show who's going, this is very convenient. This guy never happened to say something to anyone at the right moment. He just happens to not jump up and look out the Venetian blind. To him, I say, shut the fuck up. I didn't look out the Venetian blinds. That's true. There was still a Bigfoot out that window because you have no explanation for what else it was. So there. And regarding the and when I by you, I mean him. I'm talking to your listener, to that guy.
Right.
And regarding the Yosemite thing, all right, that one I'll give you that one's less definitive than the upstate New York thing, but it's weird. Maybe it is stupid that I didn't say to the tour bus guy at that point, hey, there you go, right there. This is the kind of thing I've been asking about all day. But I don't I really don't even recall if that was maybe the first stop of the day, and I hadn't even gotten into my Bigfoot questions yet, or I don't, I'm one of those people that sometimes I'm in situations that when they unfold on me in a spontaneous manner, I'm not always the quickest thinker on what to say exactly in that moment. I know this sounds weird for a comedian to say. I'm good at that on stage. But like in real life, if, I were in Baskin Robbins ice cream place and some really weird thing was said to me just now, a totally unexpected, crazy, off the wall, person, ran up to me, yelled, da-da-da-da, whatever the hell he did. Like, I might not be the best guy with the immediate comeback. Like in real life, that could catch me off guard to the point where I might be like the guy who later on at home goes like, could have done this, and then I should have said that, and then sort of like that George Costanza thing that he does all the time.
I was just thinking,
the
jerk store's running out of you.
Right, exactly. Okay, so this is sort of one of those things. This Yosemite story. I didn't quite, I wasn't that quick on the uptake on what to say or do about this one.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder if anyone would, when you see something you can't explain, you just kind of keep staring, keep thinking, like, what is that? And then the more you obsess on it, you're like, holy crap, probably should have said something.
Right. So, I mean, it's just one I put in the docket of, all right, I think I saw something that day. That, to me, that one is good, but it's not as definitive as the upstate New York one. The upstate New York one, there's nothing else someone could sell me that this was.
Right.
Now, Bigfoot and this obsession has led you to do a podcast where you talk to other people about the paranormal, whether it's celebrities. You even had Matt Moneymaker on.
Matt, Matt was on one of the first couple episodes, actually. I think he was on episode 3. And at the time, I was like, "This is Matt Moneymaker," and since then he's been completely usurped by bigger and bigger celebrities.
Well, Matt, you can come on our show.
Yeah,
yeah. But yes, and he was on. He was a cool guest, and I've talked to him now in real life quite a bit, and he's an interesting guy. In fact, just to show you how like off track I am from a regular person in terms of interest in Bigfoot. After Matt was on my show, we were talking in real life on the phone one day, and he invited me because he lives down in like Orange County, the San Diego, Orange County area, and I'm in LA. And he invited me to get in the car. I think he wanted me to come like in a couple days. It was like, say we were talking on a Wednesday. He met like, Friday, like in a couple days. He wanted me to get in the car, come down, meet him at his house, and drive with him to a special Bigfoot spot he's got down in Southern California near San Diego somewhere. I don't know where. He's got some spot that he has lots of Bigfoot incidents that is like a private spot that he goes to. And he goes by himself. And he wanted me to go with him. He's like, we'll sit in the car, all Friday night. Because I'm guaranteeing you're going to see something. Guaranteeing you're going to hear something.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I never miss it. This place, and he goes, you got to come with me. It's the coolest place. And I immediately changed my phone number. I mean, no, I did not go. I don't want any part of that. And I did not go. And, there's a bunch of your listeners listening right now going, this guy is a moron. I mean, how many people who are into the topic get invited by the host of Finding Bigfoot to go with him and sit in his personal Bigfoot hotbed, and, just shoot the breeze and, have Bigfoot incidents going on out the window with Matt Moneymaker. For Christ's sake, even Matt Moneymaker's name alone is golden. What a name. The guy was born to be on TV. Yeah. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I don't want to be there. It's like I've said on my podcast a million times. I study Bigfoot, in tremendous detail, and I study it with real interest and knowledge and enthusiasm from my couch. Mm-hmm. I was not interested in actually having one breathing on the windshield of the car I'm in. And so I didn't go.
So I've got a question for you here. From the incident that you had at your family's cabin to, fast forward in Yosemite, connect the dots. So you weren't infatuated, you weren't super interested in Bigfoot when that incident happened at the cabin. What made you take that leap from one step to the other? I mean, this scenario happened, and you were kind of at that time, you're like, oh, well, it's just something that just happened, to now where you're like, this is awesome, and I want to study this and look at it.
If my memory serves me right, I believe it wasn't that long after the New York thing in 2007 that I started watching Finding Bigfoot. I think the timing is that it went the New York incident, and then I start becoming a viewer of Finding Bigfoot, and I start going, wait a minute, this seems like the thing that happens to me upstate New York. When I'm seeing certain incidents on there. And then I'm, in the same period, they do an episode about the Whitehall incident, or maybe Monster Quest. It could have been Monster Quest to the Whitehall incident. So when I'm watching, say the Monster Quest Whitehall episode, that sounds more like it. I think they're the ones that did Whitehall. So I'm watching the Monster Quest Whitehall incident. I'm like, Whitehall, New York? Where is that? I'm like, what? It's like 40 minutes from where I was. It's like right up the same mountain line. Like it's basically just, if I had walked from my father's property, like on the crest of the mountain, for hours, I'd have gotten the 40 miles to Whitehall. Like that, like all of that. It was like plus. Wait a minute. Each thing's turning into a revelation. And then I start reading on the topic. Then I go, I got to read some books on this stuff, and then before I know it, like I'm not kidding. This really was true. There was a period of time, in there, like probably in 2008, 9, 10, whatever it was, that I'm the weirdest guy in Los Angeles, where I'm the guy going on the LA Library website and reserving every Bigfoot book they have in circulation. and I'm like, I'm turning up at libraries in LA, like I'm here to pick up a couple of books, and like the librarians are looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm literally they're handing me like 3 books about Bigfoot. Like that's what this guy comes in and leaves with on reserve. Like it's just, I'm the strangest library patron, and so I'm getting deep into reading. I'm reading an awful lot of pages on this topic at that point, and so that's, that all leads then into the Yosemite trip, which is probably 2011, 12. And I'm, by the time of the Yosemite trip, I'm really embroiled in the topic. I'm a viewer of every Monster Quest, every Finding Bigfoot. I'm a reader of 25 books already. And I've got 3 more with me on this trip. I'm that guy at this point.
You're in deep.
Yeah. So next comes my first podcast, which was in 2014-15, comedians talking about Bigfoot, which was the idea on that show was I just thought every comedian has a podcast. I'd always resisted doing one because I had been a disc jockey for so many years. And I just, in my mind, I was like, I don't want to go do like a radio-ish thing again. I did that already. And I felt like the holdout comedian. I was like the one comedian I knew that didn't have a podcast, and then I think at home just one day, jerking around, I just came up with this idea. Like it just kind of hit me spontaneously. Like, wait a minute, what if I create a podcast that's around a construct that's not just the David Race podcast? That's not just another comedian with his friends and a podcast. Like, what if I hang a frame around it? Like, comedians discussing Bigfoot is what that would be, And, because I'm really knowledgeable and passionate about it at this point, and the comedians won't know anything about it. And I'll get like, a Bigfoot expert on each episode, and like, it'll just be an interesting dynamic. Like I had this whole idea kind of came to me like in a miraculous, it's all right there in front of me. Here you go. You guys, the house has been built right before you, So I threw that podcast together and did exactly what I told you. I just said I was going to do. I put comedian friends of mine in the room. I put a, paranormal expert, Bigfoot specifically, on the phone. I had Linda Moulton Howe on one episode. I had Bobo from Finding Bigfoot on one.
Nice.
And I was the knowledgeable Bigfoot guy who happens to be a comedian at the center of it as the host. And then the 2 comedian friends I put in the room with me were idiots, and then, there was Bobo, or, next week it was whoever, and I got about 7 episodes in when it got signed to a TV deal.
Ooh.
Wow.
And then I quickly abandoned the podcast. Went and did the TV thing, and then that took up a lot of time between the shooting and then the failed selling process. It took a long time, and then eventually I wound my way from that TV show back to being a podcaster. And that's a joke. Another one I slipped in there. And then so when I decided to come back with another podcast, I decided I'm going to do something similar, with like slight variations, slight changes from what the previous one. The previous one was comedians talking about Bigfoot, and it was the guests in the room with me were only comedians, period. That's all I cared for them to be. They had to be comedians that I knew around town. And then on the phone was whoever the paranormal Bigfoot person is, not paranormal. I should stop saying that. It was only big. They had to be a Bigfoot person. I didn't want a UFO person. It was a Bigfoot person. The new show I decided would be Monstrosity with David Race, which is what my current podcast is. And that instead of comedians, it'll be celebrities, maybe, and comedians, but like most important would be that there's a celebrity in the room. If there's a comedian, that's like, okay, also. And then on the phone would be, the TV, person from whatever show, and they didn't have to be Bigfoot only. Like this episode would be a person from the Ghost show, and that next one is a UFO person, next one's Bigfoot, and then back to UFO, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and that show has had a really, really interesting run now. I mean, I'm gonna just razzle dazzle you with just random names. You can ask me anything you want about any one of them, or or anyone that jumps out that you find interesting. But I'm gonna just hit you, razzle dazzle you, just names from both the paranormal world and the celebrity world that have been on that show. Almost all of them have been in studio, which is even more weird about my podcast. I get people to come in, but the last 3 episodes or so have been, because of COVID, they haven't been able to come in. So we're doing them, now at a distance. But up to like the last 3 episodes, they've all been in the room. So there's been Matt Moneymaker. There's been Kenny Banya from Seinfeld. There's been the late Brody Stevens, who is the best comedian I've ever known. Lydia Cornell from ABC's Too Close for Comfort, who was like the hottest blonde on TV in the 80s. There's been Peter Brady from the Brady Bunch. There's been Lonnie Anderson from WKRP in Cincinnati. There's been Robert Carradine from Revenge of the Nerds. There's been Daisy Duke from the Dukes of Hazzard. There's been Steve Hackett from Genesis. There's been Robert Romanus, Mike Damone from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. There's been Tanya Raymond, who's the hot brunette on Billy Bob Thornton's Amazon show, Goliath. There's been Shadow Stevens from Hollywood Squares and American Top 40 and Dave's World. There's been the cast of Land of the Lost. There's been Katrina Weidman from Travel Channel. There's been Alan Hunter, original MTV VJ Alan Hunter. There's been Audrey Landers from Dallas, the super hot blonde from the TV show Dallas. There's been Dave Schrader from the Holzer Files. There's been Burt Ward Robin from Batman.
Ooh.
There's been Steve Lukather from the rock band Toto. And there's been Bill Burns from Ancient Aliens.
So nobody really that anybody would know.
Let me pick all these names up off the floor here. Wow, I mean, that's a nice, well-rounded, very interesting group of people to interview. Who had the most interesting paranormal story?
Of the celebrities?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the paranormal guests,
Okay, of course.
But in the celebrity genre, let me think about this. Most interesting paranormal story, I would say Lonnie Anderson.
Okay.
Lonnie Anderson told me about that in 1980, she played Jane Mansfield in the Jane Mansfield story, which was like some TV movie. Right. Just by coincidence, this isn't part of the story, but just by coincidence, the guy who played her husband in that movie was a burgeoning actor at that point, just starting to become very famous, named Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I didn't know that.
But she played Jane Mansfield, and they filmed the movie, a lot of it, at Jane Mansfield's actual home, which at the time was owned by a singer named Engelbert Humperdinck. Mm-hmm. But they actually used Mansfield's home, which then was owned by Engelbert, to film lots of that movie. And she felt that in various times during the filming of that movie that she was being haunted by Jane Mansfield's ghost on set. And most specifically, she told me a story that she was in the shower at that house, that they'd done like a pool scene or something at Jane Mansfield's pool. And then she went to take a shower, and they were going to, re-wardrobe her for whatever scene in the living room or whatever they were going to do, And while she was in the shower, she feels she was visited by Jane Mansfield's ghost.
Wow.
And I immediately said, are you sure, in light of the fact that you're Lonnie Anderson and this is 1980 and you were in the shower, are you sure you weren't visited by a ghost photographer? But she insisted it was Jane Mansfield's ghost. And I think she told me that the owner, Engelbert Humperdinck, had said that he had, incidents where he smelled Jane Mansfield's perfume and things in the house.
Oh.
Wow, interesting. Now, how did she know something was in the shower with her? Did she say something was touching her hair, or she just had a sense that there was a presence?
I think she said, I'd have to go back and listen to my own episode, but I think she said she saw something.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's insane.
Yeah,
I'll have to give that episode a listen.
Yeah.
David, this has been so much fun. I appreciate you hanging out with us. Tell everybody where they can go hear that episode and more.
They can find all of them on monstrositypodcast.com. And obviously, we're on all the major players. So any podcast type of place that they listen to podcasts, we're on it. Monstrosity Podcast.
Well, thanks, cool. David. I'll put links in the show notes. Thank you for sharing your stories with us and hanging out, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, well, take care, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, hey, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Man, we're headed up to Whitehall ourselves. I feel like we need to find his cabin and hang out, see if something happens. I mean, I guess we could get arrested for trespassing, so maybe we don't want to do that.
Or, just make sure, to David's point, that there could be a timing situation to be avoided.
Oh, Lord.
I'm just saying.
I knew
she went there.
I knew it.
I'm smart enough not to go there.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, you're on the video chat here, so yeah, you won't get clubbed. Not yet.
You're right. Not yet. Exactly. I was actually gonna say throw in when that question came out, be like, are you saying that your wife was outside pounding on the walls?
Oh.
But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to leave that out.
Oh my gosh.
Well, now it's in.
Yeah.
And now it's in there. So,
all right, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. And remember,
if it's not,
I
was going to take it from you.
Why would you?
I don't know.
Wow. Who's getting clubbed now?
All right. Ready, honey?
Yes.
And remember, if it's not weird,
it's not worth checking out.
At American Public University, we believe that higher education can unlock higher purpose. So we offer 200 modern programs for those who want to make a difference. And we believe education must adapt to students' needs. That's why we've made it accessible through online classes and flexible with monthly program starts. American Public University, within reach, without limits. Learn more at americanpublicu.com.
This message is sponsored by Amazon.
I want to get back to kissing the cheeks of my grandbabies, making Sunday dinner with a house full of family and lots of laughs.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel, but now there are vaccines. It's okay to have questions. Now get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision about COVID-19 vaccines. It's up to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.